The hum of the dim overhead lights filled the near-empty lobby of the Municipal Justice Center. Judge Evelyn Carter shifted the weight of her leather satchel on her shoulder, her stride resolute. This was no ordinary morning. Today was the culmination of a contentious trial that had captivated the entire country. Sentencing day. As Evelyn approached the security checkpoint, her eyes fell on Officer Griffin, a burly man with a neatly pressed uniform and a demeanor that seemed to exude contempt. His pale eyes tracked her movements with an intensity that felt less like vigilance and more like judgment. Evelyn had encountered Griffin before, and their exchanges had always been strained. But today his stance felt particularly hostile. "ID," Griffin barked, his voice sharp and impatient. Evelyn raised an eyebrow but maintained her composure. "Good morning, Officer Griffin." She reached into her bag and produced her government ID. Griffin snatched it, scrutinizing the card with exaggerated thoroughness. "Judge, huh?" His lips curled into a mocking grin. "You don't look like one." Evelyn met his gaze without flinching. "And what exactly does a judge look like, officer?" Griffin ignored the question, gesturing toward a side screening area. "Step over here." Additional security check. Evelyn didn't blink, but noted the subtle shifts of unease among the other officers. She nodded curtly and complied, her heels clicking purposefully against the polished floor as she moved to the designated area. Griffin followed closely, standing a shade too near for comfort, his imposing frame looming over her. "We get a lot of people claiming to be important," Griffin said, his tone dripping with condescension. "Can't be too careful." Evelyn gave him a calm, measured look. "And what exactly do you suggest I do to prove myself, Officer Griffin? Carry a courtroom with me?" Griffin chuckled dryly. "Smart mouth, huh? Let's see how smart it is when I finish this inspection." Her years in the courtroom had taught Evelyn how to keep her emotions in check, even in the face of overt antagonism. She watched silently as Griffin flipped her ID back and forth, holding it up to the light as though searching for hidden secrets. His performance was clumsy theater designed to provoke her. "Doesn't seem official to me," Griffin muttered. "You sure this isn't one of those knockoffs you can buy online?" Evelyn's lips curved into a faint, cool smile. "Perhaps if you spent more time familiarizing yourself with official credentials instead of manufacturing suspicion, you'd recognize authenticity when you see it." Behind Griffin, a couple of the other officers exchanged uneasy glances. One stifled what looked like a smirk, though they quickly turned their attention back to their posts. Griffin stepped closer, his voice dropping to a sneer. "Listen, lady, you may think you're above this process, but around here I call the shots." Evelyn stood her ground, her calm demeanor unshaken. "Your shots, officer, appear to be less about process and more about prejudice." The air thickened, the tension palpable. Griffin seemed to be weighing his options, unsure whether to escalate or retreat. He reached for his radio, speaking loudly enough for everyone in the vicinity to hear. "Possible suspicious ID. Need verification." The room stilled. Evelyn straightened, her presence commanding. She knew precisely what Griffin was doing, a petty power play to diminish her. Evelyn took a step forward, her voice clear and unwavering. "Suspicious ID? Would you care to explain why you've bypassed the IDs of 3 other individuals ahead of me without so much as a glance?" Griffin hesitated, his confidence faltering for the briefest moment. "Standard procedure," he replied brusquely. "Standard," Evelyn echoed, her tone laced with quiet challenge. "Interesting, because it appears your procedure applies selectively." Griffin bristled, but remained silent. The other officers shifted uncomfortably, caught between their colleagues' misstep and their obligation to maintain order. "I'd like to speak with your supervisor," Evelyn said, her voice calm but firm. "That won't be necessary," Griffin shot back quickly. "I'm handling this." Evelyn tilted her head slightly, studying him with the precision of a chess master examining a poorly executed move. "On the contrary, officer, it's entirely necessary." Without waiting for a response, she reached into her satchel, retrieving a compact recording device. With a press of a button, the device beeped softly, and a robotic voice announced, "Recording in progress." Griffin's bravado faltered as the implications of her actions sank in. The nearby officers froze, their eyes darting toward the device. "Transparency is key," Evelyn said smoothly, holding the recorder aloft. "I find that documenting interactions like these often clarifies intent. Shall we proceed?" Griffin's face darkened, a mixture of frustration and alarm flashing across his features. He opened his mouth to respond, but Evelyn wasn't finished. "Your actions here today will not go unnoticed," she continued. "And should this recording reveal any deviation from established protocol, I trust your superiors will address it accordingly." For the first time, Griffin appeared at a loss for words. Evelyn stood tall, her composed smile unyielding. The balance of power had shifted, and Griffin was beginning to realize that his attempt to undermine her had only fortified her resolve. The room was silent save for the faint hum of the lights overhead. Evelyn Carter, unshaken and unyielding, had made her point, and in doing so, she left no doubt. Her authority was not dictated by the uniform before her, but by the integrity she carried within. As the silence stretched, Judge Evelyn Carter maintained her steady gaze on Officer Griffin, her confidence unshaken. The recording device in her hand seemed to pulse with the weight of accountability, its quiet presence cutting through Griffin's facade of authority like a scalpel. The other officers stood frozen, their hesitation a silent acknowledgement of the shift in dynamics. Griffin finally stepped back, his bravado visibly crumbling. "Fine," he muttered, his voice lower now, almost inaudible. "You're free to go." He handed the ID back with an awkwardness that betrayed his earlier arrogance. Evelyn took her badge with a calm, deliberate motion, her expression neutral but undeniably commanding. "Thank you, Officer Griffin," she said, her tone sharp enough to draw blood but polite enough to remain above reproach. "I trust this will be the last time I'm subjected to such unusual procedures." She turned on her heel, her heels clicking against the tiled floor like the steady beat of a war drum. The other officers parted instinctively, as though her presence demanded the respect Griffin had tried so hard to deny her. Each step she took was a silent victory, a reminder that she had faced not just one man's prejudice but the entrenched biases he represented, and emerged unscathed. As she exited the checkpoint and made her way toward the courtroom, Evelyn allowed herself a faint smile. She knew this moment wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had ever been doubted, dismissed, or diminished because they didn't look the part. Today, she had stood her ground not just for herself, but for them too. With renewed determination, she opened the courtroom door, ready to deliver justice. Because today wasn't just sentencing day. It was a day to prove that authority, when wielded with integrity, could triumph over prejudice. As she stepped into the courtroom, the murmurs of the awaiting crowd hushed, every eye turning to her. Judge Evelyn Carter's presence filled the space with a palpable energy, a quiet yet unshakable strength that spoke louder than any confrontation. This was where she belonged, where her voice and judgment held power untainted by prejudice. She straightened her robe, taking her place at the bench. Today, justice would not just be served. It would stand as a beacon of fairness and resolve, a testament to the unyielding power of integrity. For Evelyn, this wasn't just about one case or one moment. It was a reminder that dignity and perseverance could dismantle even the most insidious biases.